So let's dive right into this explainer. We're going to unpack a story today that is, honestly, so much bigger than just automobiles. We're looking at how a severely resource-starved post-World War II Japanese car company didn't just figure out how to build cars. They fundamentally built a completely new philosophy of human work. I mean, they literally redesigned the way the world produces almost everything we touch today.
At the heart of this story is, well, kind of a profound mystery. Imagine a global landscape where massive, wildly wealthy industrial giants already run the show. And then, out of nowhere, a company from a nation absolutely devastated by war somehow rises from the ashes, completely bypasses those giants, and goes on to dominate global industry. You have to ask yourself, how exactly does a ruined company pull something like that off? To really wrap your head around the sheer scale of their eventual victory, just look at this number, 10 million. That represents the number of vehicles Toyota now produces annually. It's wild. They operate with this level of robotic precision and global supply chain mastery that is, honestly, almost incomprehensible. It's a very, very far cry from their humble, struggling beginnings, that's for sure. So, the secret to that massive success? It all comes down to a profound philosophical divide. You see, before Toyota came along, the world basically relied on the old Industrial Revolution model. Specifically, Henry Ford's mass production assembly line. And look, Ford's system was totally revolutionary for its time, but it was entirely focused on economies of scale. It prioritized raw speed, which left them with massive, highly inflexible inventories and consequently, incredibly expensive waste. Toyota, on the other hand, pioneered what we now call lean production. They fundamentally shifted the goalpost away from just speed, focusing instead on extreme efficiency, top-tier quality, total flexibility, and continuous improvement.
Now, to understand why Toyota went in this radically different direction, we've got to look at post-war Japan. The reality was grim. Their economy and industrial base were utterly devastated. They had incredibly limited natural resources and a tiny domestic market. This meant Toyota couldn't just copy Detroit's playbook of massive scale and unlimited capital. You know, Detroit had the luxury of mass production. Toyota, well, they had to innovate strictly out of pure survival and necessity.
And here is the absolutely crucial point. Lacking unlimited money, raw materials, and massive domestic demand actually forced manufacturing pioneers like Kichiro Toyota, Taiichi Ohno, and Shigeo Shingo to rethink absolutely everything about how things are made. Because they literally couldn't afford a single ounce of waste, their greatest weakness organically became the source of their greatest advantage. It's brilliant when you think about it. This immense struggle birthed the legendary Toyota Production System, or TPS as it's known. And let me tell you, this wasn't just some new floor plan for a factory. It was a completely revolutionary framework that shifted the entire world's focus away from just building things faster to building them smarter. It was this holistic philosophy centered entirely on extreme efficiency, hunting down waste wherever it hid, and, this is the real game changer here, empowering human workers in a way no factory ever had before. Let's break down one of the foundational pillars of this new system, just-in-time manufacturing. Instead of building thousands of extra parts and basically hoarding them in massive, expensive warehouses just in case they were needed, Toyota designed a system that aligned raw material orders directly with their actual production schedules, meaning you literally only produce what is needed, exactly when it's needed. This completely wiped out the staggering financial burden of holding on to unused inventory. Okay, the second essential pillar we need to look at is Jidoka. This roughly translates to automation with a human touch. And it is so fascinating because it proves Toyota didn't just want a dark factory full of mindless robots stamping out metal. No, they purposely designed their equipment to stop automatically the absolute second a defect occurred. They relied heavily on human intelligence to immediately step in and fix the root cause. Now, this was totally radical at the time. Traditional factories viewed a stopped machine as this catastrophic loss of money, right? But Toyota? They viewed it as a perfect opportunity for machines and humans to work together in total synergy. So we have these amazing high-level concepts, but to truly understand how revolutionary this was in day-to-day practice, we've got to look closely at what Toyota considered their absolute worst enemy on the factory floor. They literally waged a war on waste. But the thing is, they defined waste very, very differently than anyone else in the industry at the time. While American competitors were basically singularly focused on making more products as fast as humanly possible, Toyota relentlessly targeted 8 specific forms of waste, which they called muda. Things like overproduction, excess inventory, and unnecessary movement. Those were strictly forbidden. They analyzed every single tiny step of the manufacturing process to trim the fat. But honestly, the most profound element of this philosophy is how they viewed the tragedy of unused human creativity. Toyota realized that if you have a worker just standing there tightening a bolt all day, without ever asking them how to tighten it better, you are completely wasting their mind. And a human mind is the most valuable resource you have. To see how they actually respected that human creativity in practice, look no further than the famous Decoded. If a worker spots a defect, they don't just shrug and let it pass down the line to be fixed later by someone else. No way. They literally pull a physical cord to halt the entire multi-million-dollar production line. The whole team swarms the problem, they find the root cause, and they apply continuous learning so that specific defect never, ever happens again. Toyota essentially turned ordinary assembly line workers into highly empowered, highly respected problem solvers.
Now, all of this internal philosophy eventually met the external global market in a very dramatic way. This relentless focus on quality and efficiency paid off massively during the global oil crises of the 1970s and 80s. When fuel prices suddenly surged, sending massive shockwaves through the global economy, American consumers very quickly abandoned Detroit's massive gas guzzlers. Instead, they turned straight to Toyota's incredibly reliable, well-built, and highly fuel-efficient vehicles. It was a massive turning point.
As you can see broken down here, by the 1980s, Toyota's lean methodology allowed them to operate at a staggering level of manufacturing efficiency. Traditional US and European automakers, they simply couldn't compete with this at the time. Toyota wasn't just building cars faster, their underlying system was just fundamentally superior. They were creating higher quality vehicles at a much lower cost, with far less waste.
So, seeing this massive, undeniable success, you might be wondering, if this system is so perfectly designed for efficiency and quality, did it just stay locked inside automotive factories, or did anyone else try to copy it? Well, the answer is a resounding yes. The Toyota production system very quickly outgrew cars, evolving into massive global movements that you've probably heard of, like lean manufacturing and Six Sigma. Today, hospitals use Toyota's principles to reduce patient wait times and cut down on medical errors. Silicon Valley tech startups use them for agile software development. From streamlining global supply chains and logistics to tightening up aviation safety checks, Toyota fundamentally changed how modern human organizations everywhere think about efficiency and continuous improvement. However, to remain completely objective here in this explainer, we do have to acknowledge that Toyota is not perfect. Their journey certainly hasn't been without missteps. They faced some immense challenges recently, including massive global quality recalls that really challenged their long-standing reputation for perfection. On top of that, they've dealt with severe supply chain disruptions. And, highly debated in the industry right now, is the intense criticism they're facing for their relatively slow transition to battery electric vehicles. Because today, the modern threat to Toyota looks entirely different. In the past, they defeated the old legacy giants of Detroit by simply out-manufacturing them. But now they're being aggressively challenged by nimble, tech-first EV disruptors, companies like Tesla and emerging Chinese manufacturers. These guys are treating cars less like traditional mechanical machines and much more like rolling computers built on entirely new software-first architectures. It's a whole new ballgame. If we look at the massive historical arc of this story, taking us from their post-war innovations back in the 1950s right up to the unprecedented disruptions of the 2020s, a new question definitely emerges. Moving forward, their grand challenge is figuring out how to integrate artificial intelligence, robotics, smart factories, and hydrogen technology into a foundational system that was originally designed over half a century ago. Ultimately, what you should really take away from this explainer is a shift in perspective. Toyota's true product, the real thing they gave the world that changed absolutely everything, was actually never just a car. The greatest manufacturing revolution in history wasn't a machine, it was a philosophy. It was this deeply held, rigorously applied belief that human improvement never ends. It's the simple but powerful idea that every single day, no matter how good you are, there is always a better, smarter way to do things. Which leaves us with this final provocative thought to ponder as we wrap things up. As software, electrification, and artificial intelligence completely take over the modern factory floor, Toyota is undeniably facing its biggest test yet. Can the company that reinvented manufacturing for the entire world dig deep into its own famous philosophy and reinvent itself once again to win the future? Thank you so much for joining this explainer, and remember to keep asking those big questions.
Thanks for watching World Decoded. Make sure to like and share, subscribe, and stay curious.